mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 6 of the Apple TV limited series, The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray, entitled Ptolemy. This is the final episode of this miniseries, and I gotta say it ended a little unceremoniously. And that's not to say it ended badly or poorly. It's just to say that it just ended. Like, it's not something that you leave with something. Like, you end it, you're like, wow, that was incredible. Or wow, that sucked. It was like, wow, that was. Like, that existed and it happened. And I don't think necessarily that's any fault of the show. It is based on a book. But I think that if you're coming into this with the expectation of some sort of mystery box show or some like a bunch of crazy shit happening, and they kind of lead you in that direction by having a lot of mystery heading into the show, you're going to end up disappointed because everything kind of plays out in a way that you would expect. It's just that the show, I think, is more geared toward developing these characters, showcasing the relationship between Ptolemy and Robin, especially as someone being Ptolemy, who felt neglected and like they had no one to support them or help them other than Reggie, who was a relative. And now he has this person who is essentially a stranger to him, who comes in and is willing to help him and take care of him and clean up his house. And we get that development of that relationship. And we also get it through the lens of being able to watch Samuel L. Jackson and Dominique Fishback give incredible performances. So I think that's really like what we should take away from the show, is how great of a job those two did, how much chemistry those two had, and how rewarding it was to watch their relationship develop and grow into what it was. And to not kind of come in here thinking like, oh, I was hoping for some really cool reveals or some really weird shit to happen, when everything kind of just is played straight up, I think. So I want to talk a little bit about what happened in this final episode. We have kind of a lot of things not a lot, but we have a little bit to discuss. And I think, I don't really need to go at this thematically or from this is the path for this character. This is the path for this character. I can just kind of run down what happened and give some brief thoughts on it. And that's what I'm going to do. So to start this episode, WRNG, well, I don't know if it's to start the episode or not, but it's the first thing that I have in my notes here. She starts out with asking Ptolemy on a date. And also, Robin and Roger are going on a date. And Ptolemy kind of rebuffs both of them. He tells Ring, like, I got you tomorrow. I got something going on today. Can't really do it. And he keeps Robin. Well, he doesn't keep them. He asks her to keep him out longer so that he can have some time to enjoy his date that he's not going on. So he's kind of lied to both of them because he's pushing both women away because he knows that his business with Alfred has to happen, and that at the end of that business, there's probably not going to be much of him left. And I think that's kind of like a shitty and selfish thing to do when you have two people who are essentially being left with, I'll see him tomorrow, or I'll see him later today. And you, knowing that that's not the case, lead them on to believe that. I think it's kind of shitty, but like, at the end of the day, this is a guy who's 90-something years old and knows that his dementia is about to come roaring back, and he really wants to do something to, I guess, get revenge for what happened to Reggie. And, he said in his speech, I think it was the last episode, that this needs to happen because it's not fair that a good person like Reggie is gone and a piece of shit like him is still here. And, now he's not a piece of shit, but this is a guy that's carrying a lot of guilt over what he did or did not do with his daughter. And I feel like there's a bit of redemption there for Ptolemy to act in a way that properly conveys his affection for Reggie, as almost a way to compensate for not doing that with his daughter. What's her name? Doris? For not doing that with Doris. And I could be reaching. That's not really on the screen so much, but it's really one of the best ways to justify how somebody who is nearing the end of life will come to grips with how they might have mistreated one person versus how they want to redeem themselves via another person. So he does that, kind of lies to them, kind of sucks, but he also does it to keep the events of this last day secret. I feel like if he told Robin that he was gonna go to the museum and he was gonna go to Lake Altoona, and we see this in a flashback with Essentia, where he asked, she asked him like, what would you do with a free day? And she's clearly already pretty far gone with her cancer. Like she seems to be bedridden at this point. And I took from that as in like, what would you do with your last day? Which is kind of, it's the name of the show. And he says that he would go to this museum and go to this lake. And I think if he told Robin that, she would probably key in on like, oh wait, this is probably his last hurrah. And again, he didn't want to leave that, I think, as his last memory. So that's why he was deceptive with both her and Ring. But he ends up doing that. He goes to the museum, has an awkward conversation with someone else there, goes to Lake Altoona, has a flashback. Mabel comes up. And basically he gets to spend his final day doing what he wants to do before he has to do what he has to do with Alfred. So he goes home. This driver who was driving around like an Escalade or some shit. I don't know where, like, did he order this? But anyway, the driver drops him back off at home. He tells the driver, he tries to pay the driver to do this. The driver won't take the money, but he tells the driver, basically, all I want you to do is sit here and chill till you see this motherfucker that look like Alfred come in. He describes Alfred. And then I just want you to blast the horn like 5 minutes after he goes in. That's it. And the driver agrees to do that. And the situation with Alfred plays out very straight up, like just like you would expect it to. No crazy reveals, no big surprises. Alfred shows up. He drinks his liquor without asking, which already is a violation to me. Like, like as a fairly established and celebrated alcoholic, I feel like you're asking to get a bottle over the head if you just come in and sit down and just take a swig out of somebody's bottle. But never mind that. He takes a swig out of his bottle, and essentially Ptolemy tells him, I got these coins here worth $40,000. I'll give you 2 a month for a year to just admit that you killed Reggie and get the fuck out of here and leave Nina alone. And he doesn't agree to do that. He agrees to take the coins, but he pulls a knife, says he's going to just keep the coins and stay with Nina, and that he's also going to hurt Robin. And saying that he was going to hurt Robin sets Ptolemy off. Ptolemy pulls a gun that he had hidden and shoots him. And this is after, by the way, Alfred does admit that he killed Reggie, and he wants to know who it is that told on him. Meanwhile, the recorder that we saw in episode 1, where Ptolemy was leaving a message to Robin, he left recording on top of his, like a dresser or something, armoire or whatever. And so that confession should presumably be recorded. But, yeah, Ptolemy shoots him, and that's essentially it. Like, he shoots him. They go out in the street. That same woman who was trying to harass Ptolemy robs Alfred for a watch, and Ptolemy gets arrested. And then he wakes up 6 months later, fully bearded up, long hair, kind of looking like his Unbreakable character. And he's strapped to a bed, and he's having visions of all of the people, not all of the people, but the main people that we've seen him interact with during the show, all presumably come to visit him in this hospital, but he's just imagining it. It's Dr. Rubin, Robin, Reggie. I think that's it, actually. Dr. Rubin, yeah. So then the show, because at this point, we're probably only about halfway through the episode, maybe a little bit past halfway. And then the show takes an interesting turn to where we kind of deal with the fallout of what happened after all of these events. Because like I said, it's been 6 months. They do it like a 6 months later thing, and that's when we see him like in the bed or whatnot. So the show takes this turn because, and before I get into what happens, I like this. I want to say that I kind of liked this direction because, like I said, I felt the Alfred shit ended very underwhelmingly. And again, like, I'm not saying it should have ended spectacularly, but it just ended in a very usual way. So I like the fact that the end of this episode kind of dealt with the fallout. We see Niecy, Nina, and Hilly sitting across the table from Robin, and they all have their lawyers there. And essentially, Niecy, Nina, and Hilly are trying to take control of Ptolemy's money. even though he has a will that says Robin is in charge, they still gonna get paid. It's not like he's like, all my money goes to Robin. He's got everything set up to where they all get broke off some loot. But because she's in charge of it and they don't have full ability to take and do whatever they want with however much money he has, these millions, they're not satisfied. And they're fighting back. And they accuse him of not being in a good enough mental state to make this will. And so they break out, they being Robin and her lawyers, break out this tape that Ptolemy recorded to prove that he was of very sound mind. And he leaves a nice little message to Robin that makes her tear up at the end of the video, which I thought was just yet another great scene for Dominique Fishback and Samuel L. Jackson, where they're not even on the screen together, but they're still having some dynamic chemistry. But the scene that I think, and I don't know how I really perceived Niecy throughout this show, because it seemed like at some moments Niecy seemed like she was well-intentioned, but just not one to make the right decisions. And then at other times, she seemed very ill-intended. And I think for me, it really nailed home how much of a greedy, selfish piece of shit Niecy is when they don't directly say, but we can deduce that Robin ends up winning in this situation. She has a conversation with the judge, and it seems like Robin wins this situation because Niecy says, well, the judge told me we could still contest it in court. And Robin is kind of like, again, trying to reassure her that she didn't have any ill motives. And she's like, I miss you. I just want us to be cool. She hugs her tearfully. And Niecy's just like, yeah, I'm going to keep fighting though. Like, it's why, like, Niecy to me went from someone who I'm like, I don't really know about this person to, yeah, she's a piece of shit. To have a situation where, despite not deserving anything, like, you don't deserve shit. Like, the way she did him and the way Ptolemy, and like the whole thing with the cops going up there to try to do this wellness check on him, that was solely out of the minds and intentions of Niecy and Hilly. The fact that he still put you in his will and gave you guys money for Robin to spread out over the course of however long, the fact that he still did that should be more than enough, because you should know you don't deserve shit. But the fact that Robin was in charge of it still wasn't enough, and she had to go just still like look her niece in the face, who is tearfully asking to reconnect, and go, yeah, I'm still gonna try to fuck you over anyway. Like, man, Niecy was shitty at the end of that. And the episode essentially ends with Robin visiting Ptolemy for real, and I think we can kind of presume that things end as they should, or as they should have. And like I said, again, the ending is, like I said, I don't want to say it's bad or anything like that. It's just it doesn't leave you feeling like with some sort of feeling coming out of it. Like, you want to leave a show, like when Succession ended, I was like, man, what a fucking season that was. What a fucking finale that was. And I left this and I'm just like, all right, well, I watched that. So it's one of those things where it's like, I can't fully endorse watching this show, because you're not going to get too much out of it aside from the satisfaction of seeing what I think is a career-defining performance for Samuel L. Jackson, and what I hope is a breakout performance from Dominique Fishback. But I'm going to wrap up. I'm at 14 minutes. I'm going to wrap up with a couple of thoughts. And these will be very brief. I liked when in the video that Ptolemy recorded to prove how well his mental state was, he says like he's talking about who's getting what money, and he says something like and money for Hilly when Hilly's books whenever he inevitably goes to prison. I thought that was a nice line. And then I like when Ptolemy tells this story about Thor and Odin, because I mean, come on, like. Like it makes me wonder, like, I haven't read the book. I wonder if this Thor and Odin story is in the book, and then they cast Samuel L. Jackson, and were like, oh, this will be funny. Or if that's not in the book, and they were like, oh, we have Samuel L. Jackson, let's have him tell a story about Thor and Odin. For those who aren't making the connection, Samuel L. Jackson plays Nick Fury in the MCU, so that's why it's funny to have him as a completely different character still talking about Thor and Odin. But I'm going to wrap this one up. It's been fun. Nobody watched these videos anyway, so I'm glad I don't have to commit to a second season or any more episodes. But at the end of the day, I felt it was worth watching it to get these performances. And I hope the very few of you who have watched these videos got something from it. And until you find something else awesome on this channel to watch, peace.